Magical Journey podcast. What if I told you that sometimes reality just doesn't seem to have all the boxes checked? And some things just happen to be way different than what it appears to be. And we don't always have the answer for who or what it is. Tonight, I'm telling you, we got a story for you. There is mystery, suspense, and there are absolutely no answers to some of the questions that you will have at the end of the night. But my guests are going to help us walk through this, and we're going to explore a whole new dimension of thought tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Beth. Hey.
Hello.
All right. So, Beth, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about your experience, because your story, I mean, when I first heard it from you, I was like, wow, this is big.
Well,
Sorry, we'll say it a little bit.
here we go. Well, we grew up here in Tennessee. My family's always lived here. Um, Raised my children here, and it's just been so far a lifetime of experiences. So, and a lot of them are unexplainable. Um,
Definitely. Now, when you say a lifetime of it, when
well, my family has always grown up here. I can't hear you, Michael.
No, keep going.
I see him moving.
Don't pay attention to that.
Okay.
yeah, so my mods are telling me that the volume is a little low on you guys' side.
Yeah.
The audio?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mic not picking up?
Yeah, it's kind of in and out.
Oh.
While we're doing that, I'm going to show you guys something just to give you a little taste of what we're talking about tonight here. And so that looks like a picture of a kind of just a regular, if you just are just looking at it, like just a picture of the sun shining through the clouds. But look really closely at this picture and tell me what you see that seems really out of place in the middle of all of this. Let me give you guys a little hint. See in the very middle, literally almost the middle of the picture, there's a really bright blue light that seems to be like literally just suspended. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Ryan, you're right. It is literally an orb. And this is just a kind of a teaser of what you're going to see here in just a moment. When I first saw the very first picture I saw of this was way way more than it was like in your face. You can't help but see this. But that is basically one of the phenomena that we're going to be talking about tonight. It is. It's a very amazing, but honestly, again, you ain't seen nothing yet, as they say. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the. Hold on a second. Let me make sure. Okay, so. I, the one I was getting ready to show is like the close up of another one, so I'll show that in a little bit. So, okay, so when you talk about experiences, what type of experiences exactly have you guys? I know there's a lot.
Well, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you guys hear okay?
Yes, we're good. We're okay. The picture that you were just showing, that my mother had caught that picture out here on the front of the property, here on the farm where we live, and she was not even trying to capture anything. She hadn't even seen the orb at the time, and she was just she likes to take the wildlife pictures and um the pictures of the scenery and you know saw around here, and she grew up here on the farm too, and has also lived here since she was very young, and she showed me the pictures, and I was like, "Do you see that?" and then she spotted it, and she was like, "Oh my gosh!" She said, "I didn't even realize." And I said, she said, "Well, maybe that's the sun reflection." And I said, "No, I don't think so." I said, it's possible it could be." I said, "But I don't think so." But that picture, that was captured actually on Christmas Eve, on that day in 2020. And I noticed after that, after she caught that in the photo, um, we started seeing the little blue orbs. Well, actually, um, you know, they they'll downsize on their own sometimes to a pinpoint, and then they'll expand back out. We watched them grow pretty good size, pretty big, and that seemed to be the start of that. As far as our blue orbs around here, was on that day, and I noticed after that one came, and it was just the one for a little while, for a few months, and a few months later, there seemed to be there was like another one that came, you know, and I would observe them and watch them, and they just kind of stayed around and hung out here together. We've got a pretty good sized grove of trees out here on the side of the house, and I always noticed that they they would go up in the trees and stay around in this grove of trees out here, you know, off in the side yard. And then there was another one that showed up, you know, about 2 or 3 weeks later after that. So far there's been three, and so
Is this the one that showed up next?
well now that one, that was actually a whole different circumstance. And once again, my mother, I take a lot of pictures myself too, but my mother, um, she was actually taking pictures down on the front of the property. And there's a big creek area that runs year around, that runs bordering the property. and she was taking pictures down that way. And of course, the huge cedar tree right there at the front of the drive, she loves taking pictures of that tree right there. All of us love that tree. You know, I think all of us out here, um, my mom, her parents, that tree was here when my grandparents bought the farm and stuff, and the grandkids, the great grandkids, everybody's grown up with some of these trees, out here. So, but she didn't even realize that she caught the blue orb back there in the background that's over the creek. Where that orb is over in that grove of trees back there across the road. And she didn't realize that she caught that. And she was like, we were looking at her nature picture. And then I asked her again, I was like, do you realize what you caught in this photo? So,
Right.
and
And
she
go
was
ahead.
like, oh my gosh, there's another one. Now, that, we zoomed it up, and I know some people refer to it as pareidolia or whatever, but, if you zoom it up, and I promise, that photo has not been, none of these have been doctored, um, but it's clearly got a face,
Mm.
and to us it always appeared, to be, maybe an elder woman's face, and so, you know, we were just pretty wild. We've always been pretty wild with that. We've always noticed though over the years that um, this creek area and the wooded area has always, it's always had a lot of activity down the front of the property also. So
Yeah, I gotta tell you guys, I ran these pictures through, um, of course, the old-fashioned, you know, way of checking out pictures, and then I was like, you know what? I wonder what would happen if I did this with AI. And honestly, I scrubbed it. I took it to a deep um, uh, research, and AI went through and said, "Well, this is what it's not, and it's not, and it's not." And then when I got to the conclusion, I'm like, "Am I really reading this?" It literally said, "This is a unknown light anomaly and paranormal in nature." That's literally what it said. And so a few hours later, I tested some of these again, and it gave me the exact same response. So, because I kind of doubt AI sometimes, but honestly, when I'm getting the same exact response for like time and time again for something, I'm like, okay, because you can ask it some questions and we'll give you 2 or 3 different answers at different times a day. But this every single time was like, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. And the conclusion was always the same: unknown light anomaly and paranormal nature. So yeah, I mean, it definitely it ruled out all of the uh it was like, it's not AI generated, it's not photoshopped, it's not this, it's not that, it's not structured, it doesn't have a solid structure, and it was like it literally checked all the boxes that it wasn't, and was like, this is what it's not. And I was like, wow, just wow.
no,
Um,
the more the after the blue orbs, you know, apparently seem to be comfortable here, and I'm glad they were. I'm glad they are. You know, we've always kind of regarded it as a sanctuary. You know, and um, about the time I think that they get quiet and they go in and you don't see them for periods of time. Uh, and there's no way to predict it. Sometimes you might not see them for 3 or 4 months. You know, you might not see them, and then they'll you'll see them back out roaming around the yard and flowing around. And they seem to stay pretty close around here. And like I said, they really like the grove of trees out here. And of course, none of that's disturbed. And just like the cedar tree down there in the front, we've got some very old trees here, you know, and we really don't disturb any of the trees or anything. We try to take care of maintain everything and just let it be, you know. So
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys grew up with that, so you don't want to change the landscape too much. It's absolutely beautiful, it looks like, from what I was able to see. Um, so, yeah.
it has touched my heart over the years that you know it. Like I said, they'll get pretty quiet, and I'll think, well, I get kind of disappointed, and I'll be thinking, well, they took off somewhere, they're gone. You know, we may not see them again. You know, because um, as any beings, any creatures, humans, you know, um, everything has got a will of its own, and it does what it will. You know, so. But
Right.
I'll be walking around the yard and I'll think, well, I guess they're gone. You know, I hadn't seen them in a while. And, you know, and it'll be sometimes, you know, a couple of days later, or it might even be a week later or a couple of weeks later. And I'll see them shoot back out of this grove over here. And, you know, so I thought, well, apparently, you know, they're responding, you know, and they're conscious, you know,
Right.
and so
One of the Unreal estate agents made the comment about the North Carolina brown lights. That's one of those cases that it does remind me of the same thing. Um, I believe Hellbent Holler is working on exploring those more right now, which is down in the Georgia area. These The consistency of them is what really made me think about that same case because and one of the things that really makes me impressed by the photographs is they're all taken at different times under different circumstances. And what I'm getting ready to show you guys now is really going to throw you off because these were actually taken on the same night. And again, at different part of the property from the other orbs, but it's the blue orb again, and this proves that they're very mobile. So we're going to start out with this one here. Talk about being comfortable. How much more comfortable can you get than being right next to the house where people are living? Come on. So, tell us about this one here. Was Am I showing on the right sequence? It started out with this.
mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
so they'll dig down like that sometimes, and you know, I know unless you're 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 sitting out here watching them, you know, they'll dim way down like that.
Mhm.
Um, they'll be on the side of the house. Um, I work nights, so I get off real early in the morning, you know, and of course it'll still be dark outside when I come in. And I've seen them on the side of the house. I've seen them up on the roof, you know, and sometimes they're just up there moving around on top of the roof, and and all over the backyard area. They seem to like the backyard, you know, and it is. Yeah, that's some of the. I know it's a, a darker picture, but that's some of the trees in the background, you know, on the side of the house over there where they seem to stay. So, but I would come in and I just got to where I would sit out in the car because I didn't want to disturb them, and I'm fascinated with them, and actually have gotten, you know, kind of attached to them. Um, so I would just sit and watch them, and I would be still because I didn't want them to go in. I didn't want to take them off or anything, you know. Um, but they got to where, you know, they seemed to that they didn't mind my presence or my family's presence, you know. So, um, and you know, they got to where I would walk through the backyard and walk around there and just watching them, and you know, they've gotten to where that they'll come up closer, and you know, I don't know. I mean, they just seem like they're visiting and playing, you know.
Right. And now you notice, like, originally it started out in down, like, over down lower. Now in this photo, it's like it's already moved, and it's actually grown a little more brilliant. So, and you guys haven't seen anything yet. These were all taken on the same night. Okay, so understand that what I'm showing you is actually kind of, hopefully, is very close to the sequence they were taken, and I believe it looked like by the
Yeah,
pattern of movement.
it is.
And
Actually, that it's a succession of different photos, and it's the same night, the early. It's the same morning.
yeah, you can tell it's starting to, like, the sun is trying to come up in the background a little bit.
Well, actually, that is where um it just started kind of fanning out. Now
Ah,
there is a porch light up under the porch right there
mhm,
by the back door, but it had moved from right there on right there on the house to up on the roof right there, and he started expanding and getting bigger, and the colors started changing on him.
mhm.
So actually, that direction, yes, that is to the east right there. Straight back is to the east, but it was still dark outside.
Mm.
So when all this was taking place,
Uh, this I found extremely interesting. Yeah, like literally, like you can see the trees, like, in the background there. Um, a little bit. There's definitely wooded areas around there, Pam. This next couple of photos I found very interesting because it shows a whole new level of what's going on as far as, like, what, like, their transformation goes. I thought that was very interesting. Like, obviously it's getting more brilliant, and Yeah. 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 I definitely find the behavior on this one very interesting.
And a lot of times, sometimes I would like stay out in the driveway, which like when you pull in our driveway, you can see like straight. You're right there, looking straight through the backyard. But I had already came in the gate and was walking around the back sidewalk right there, and you know he that's where it just stayed. It stayed right there on top of the roof. It stayed around the house, and I tried it. I really was kind of concerned. I thought it's gonna take off. It's gonna take off and go back up into the trees, but um, it didn't. It stayed right there, you know, the whole time while I was taking that succession of pictures, and you know, um, and was just interacting the whole time, you know. So
So Pam was asking, we kind of had this conversation earlier today. Pam is asking if you have a lot of minerals or quartz in the area.
I know we have found geos, you know, in the creek area and stuff over the years. Um, we still have a well as far as we have well water here, and there's a lot of limestone. There's a lot of mineral, you know, that we have as far as that comes through the water. So comes through the well water.
I never thought about that.
Well, about the minerals.
Yeah, or about the energy transference from the water table straight up to the surface. The fact that we're tapped into the underground water.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's it's definitely there's definitely that this the thing that's really kind of interesting is like for those that don't really know much about the geography and geology of Tennessee. So I do know that like from oh my gosh, at least a good portion of the north central Tennessee area at one time they used to mine hematite in what's now called the LBL, uh, which I believe hematites also usually they find gold deposits with hematite. Um, celestite is found throughout parts of um, well, all over Cumberland Ridge area and so forth. There's a lot of areas through there that you find celestite. Calcite is another one that's very common in these areas. Uh, quartz, quartz is a given. It's like it's popping up and hiding everywhere. So uh, any given area could possibly have any or all of those throughout all of the state of Tennessee, Kentucky. Um, I have not noticed it in North Alabama on the maps, but that doesn't mean anything. It's just not something that they've located there yet, probably.
Now I do know that I think like because like we're close to 70, like going into Carthage, and I believe they've got the zinc mines when you're going in headed into Carthage right there, and it's the zinc mine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
They got a lot of mineral mines at Carp.
yeah.
So,
But all of this area through here, um, just I started looking into a lot of the history over the years, through this whole area. My children you know, my sons have grown up. I probably drove them crazy while they were younger. So, but now they seem to kind of enjoy it, you know, and research quite a bit themselves. And um, but you know, there's been, you know, we live close to the old Sellers farm. They found, you know, several mounds there on that farm. We're just, you know, just a few miles from there.
Well,
So
right down, we catch everything from Sellers Mounds. I mean, hell, we have a Sellers Mounds park bench on our property from where it flooded the creek, you know.
well,
Wow.
actually, yes, that did happen because Spring, Spring Creek, Spring Creek that borders this that borders the farm here actually winds around and winds up running around. It goes through the Sellers Mounds. So we have had quite a bit of flash flooding and stuff over the years. And my where did you find it?
It's up the creek on the property, but yeah.
Yeah, it wound up washing down where it flash flooded, and Michael came back up to the house and he was like, I think we wound up with one of the benches off of the Sellers Mounds, and I was like, what? You know? And he said, yeah, it washed that far
But
around there.
that just
So,
goes to show, I mean, when you have sites like that where the natives stayed and, you know, talking about minerals, it all washes down the creek. So you really don't know what kind of energies comes flows with that, I'd say.
yeah.
Right, right. I know it's so it and the, this is the thing about like the geography of Tennessee is kind of goes from one extreme on one side of the state to another extreme on the other side of the state. So there's until you get well, actually everywhere it seems like there's a floodplain. Um, it's Tennessee. We don't. There's water everywhere all the time anyway. Um, but yeah, you see a lot of sometimes some pretty dynamic shifts and things with the floods and with the water, uh, the rainy seasons and so forth. Um, Before we do, I want to. This is Pam is going to lose her mind when she sees this because this was one of the photos that really made me go wow. Um, so this one that I'm getting ready to show you here, um, notice that it's like fairly brilliant and it's pretty obvious. Um,
Yeah, that's
and
one of the blue orbs right there.
yeah,
Yeah.
now this 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 is what really blew me away. And when I ran, this was the first one I ran through uh, the deep search on AI, and look at that. My first thought was, "What am I looking at?" Because that's crazy. But
I've shown that picture to a couple of people in private, to a handful of people. And, they were like, Beth is my nickname. So they were like, Beth, that's a big light or reflection of a security light, coming from the back of the property. And, I was like, no, it absolutely is not. I was like, you guys have been out to the farm. The only light that we have, and we don't have any neighbors right here close to us. The only not right here next to us. We're kind of centered like right in the middle of the property up
When
here.
was that? When did you check that?
That was in, gosh, that was in like, it was like a succession.
Point being, like, it was long enough ago that there wasn't anybody building up around us either. No one moved in.
That was in like, gosh, I've had to write down dates and keep up with them. So that was in like 2021 right there. So that right there was definitely in like 2021. And, you know, I was like, guys, there's zero lights back there in the back. That's back there in the grove of trees. That's back there in that grove of trees behind that looks like a shed. It's actually an old smokehouse, you know, and it's hovering right back there in that grove, right there beside the house. And I was like, guys, y'all been out here. There are no lights back there, none. We don't have any security lights or anything back there. It's just like pitch dark. So when you walk back through there, and um, you know, it came out and it just started radiating back there, you know. So that evening.
Well, and the thing is, like, so AI again scrubbed this photo, and literally one of the things that said that it was not, so there's no physical structure to this. There's no physical structure. So if it would have been, you know, a light or something like that, it would have detected something like within it, because AI picks up things sometimes that in photographs that I would never think of. So that was one of the things that really impressed me about this. Not only the intensity of it, but the fact that AI said there was no physical structure to what we were seeing just in this one photo here. So when we talk about the orbs, and the orbs is just one. So let me do this, because I'm kind of like trying to. There's a space limit on how many photos I can throw in here at once. Let me go back and grab a couple more of these, because there's some stuff. I'm telling you, like when I saw the things that she was showing me, I literally, like, I was like, I know I've seen some crazy stuff in my lifetime, but this is a big reality check. Because it was just stuff that, and my mind kept saying, this is not what you're used to seeing.
That
Definitely.
affair took place when I caught that photo. And I was up here in the front. I was up here in the yard. Actually, um, I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone. You know, when I caught whatever that craft was, um, in the previous picture, that was in like April, you know, of 2019. It was around in there, and I was I was sitting out on the bench outside that evening talking to a friend on the phone,
Oh,
and whatever that is that I caught in that picture, it like came from the north. It came from the northern direction, and our the whole front of our property is facing the north, and it never made a sound. Okay, never made a sound whatsoever. You couldn't even hear it, but it it just like came down real low to the point that I started getting really creeped out and excited. I got really tore up, to be honest with you, and really alarmed. And like I said, I was on the phone with my friend and a friend of mine, and you know, he's he was a paranormal researcher, an investigator himself, and you know, he'd asked me if I was okay, and I said, "Well, I don't know yet." I said, "There's something going on, you know," and so this thing just like came down and almost looked like it was going to land out in the field, but it didn't. And out in front of the house, it didn't. It just kind of hovered, you know, a few yards above the ground for a few minutes, and then it slowly it went back up, and it just like flew out towards the eastern side of the farm. Um, that's actually the eastern side of the house right there, and it stayed flying pretty low, but you could never hear it. You could never hear it. Never heard a motor, nothing. Never, you know, like an airplane motor, nothing. And it stayed lit up like that the whole time. Um, and it stayed right above the treetops. And I watched it go out the back side of the property, um, towards the southeast, actually going towards Watertown. So towards the Watertown area.
Wow.
It went that direction. And I just don't have any explanation for it. Don't know what it is. Um, I called a couple of friends. I called a couple of old, couple of veterans, friends that are veterans. You know that maybe have some knowledge. Um, I was asking questions. Is that a drone? You know, I mean, you know, is it some kind of aircraft that possibly, that they're testing? We don't know about. Who knows? And one of my friends, I had gotten off the phone with the one I was on there with, but one of my friends that I had called that had dealt with um, the drones and stuff, where they were uh, testing those and everything while he was in the military. And I asked him, I said, could that be a drone? And he just told me, he said, look, he said, I know you're a little creeped out, he said, but honestly, he said he would try to find out some information, but he said that is not a drone or anything that he's ever seen. You know, he couldn't identify it for me. And he had a lot of experience with them.
Right.
But
So it's interesting that you say that, because that's exactly what AI said. Said again, it went through this whole list of what it's not. And it said it's not a drone, it's not a plane. And it just kept going. I'm like, okay, so you're like, I think it's listed, says it's not a bird and it's not a bug. And it just kept going. I'm like, okay, so what is it then? And when I finally got to what AI's assessment was of what it is, that one area that you see, if you can, if you notice, there's a little bit of area of light that looks like it's flipping upward. Now, AI said that was an indication that was actually moving.
yeah,
And so,
that's right. Because when I caught that picture right there, it was moving.
and that was exactly what AI said. That strange little, like you can tell it's like even a little brighter than the rest of it. It said that was an indication of movement. The other thing that it said that I found was very interesting was that it said it appears to be self-illuminated.
Mhm.
So, and of course it mentioned that there was no running lights, no this, no that, so it couldn't be a plane. And then, conclusion, it really could not come to a conclusion of what type of craft. So it literally, in its assessment, it said that it would have to label this as a UAP because there was no definitive answer for what it was, which makes sense. Obviously, it believed that it was looking at something that was self-illuminated, so it would have to be something, a physical object, and not just a light anomaly. So, or that's what I'm assuming, at least by the verbiage it was using, because it it seemed like it was trying to tell me that it was basically a self-illuminated object moving through the sky. So I found that very interesting. The AI was like really pushing that out there. And to test the waters, I actually like fed it a couple of bogus photos that I had taken of, things like a speck of dirt on my window, in my car, and just to see what it would say it was, and it told me exactly what it was. It's like, that's dirt on your car. So I mean, it's not like I just took for granted that what AI was pitching at me and making sure that I picked it up like that. I test the waters on everything, guys, and I'm telling you, like, I went over and over and over. So this, okay, I'm just going to tell y'all now. When she showed me this picture, and you guys had seen this already just a moment ago, when she showed me this picture, I'm like, Beth must be able to read my mind, because I was waiting for something that was going to go. This is like a once in a lifetime photo again, but I was looking at it and I was like, because we had talked about other phenomena going on. I said, I was like, I really hope she's got a picture of an apparition somewhere. And boom, this came up.
That I have a lot of pictures from over the years, and you know, I've just got a lot of pictures, and I feel very, very, very fortunate, to have been able to catch, you know, um, the apparitions and the blue orbs, and you know, I'm very thankful. I consider it a gift, I really do, and from all these beings or these elementals and you know what have you, but um, that that was in the summer of 2019, and I'm just out. I'll get out and go sit out in the yard a lot of times, you know, especially when I get off of work, and just go sit out there on the back patio and just chill. So, and before this apparition kind of materialized, I kind of saw, you know, sort of. Now look, it was not foggy outside. It was not foggy. It hadn't been raining or anything. It was clear that night. It was a nice night outside, and I saw this mist forming up, um, coming from the front yard. I was sitting in the back, and but I could see down through the side yard and up towards the front. And I kept kind of watching it, and I thought, that's odd. There's just one mist, that's it. No fog or anything coming through the yard. And the closer it got, it started forming up more, and I just reached out. The more it formed up, I just reached out and snapped a picture, and I thought, to just see what it, you know, what you can catch, if you catch anything. You know, I've actually witnessed things going through the yard or out to the field, or if we're out walking on the property, and uh tried to catch things in a picture, and it don't, nothing shows up. You know, it's just like it disappears. So, but you know, that night, I mean, you know, that apparition showed up in the photo, and so, and that's always been one of my favorites right there. You know, I'm just always in awe of that. And like I say, you know, anytime I think any of these any of these beings or these apparitions at times, I think a lot of them I allow people to see them. You know, when when they want to. You know, so and so yes, I will forever be in awe of that photo right there.
Yeah, that was like literally there was no list of what it wasn't with this. It literally came up immediately on AI as an apparition, and then it went into the whole points of why it said that. So, and there were a lot of them, and I think I got screenshots of them, but somewhere. But if I turn my phone on, I know it's going to blow up and start like buzzing all over the place and make a lot of noise. So I don't really want to do that right this minute. But um, the thing is every one of the and I'm saving what I consider the cream of the crop uh, for last because this is amazing. And you know which one I'm about to show them, right? Because you were going to even show me this one because you didn't think the quality was that good. I'm going to tell you now. This photo, and I'm going to tease y'all about it for a moment because, like, this photo, I think, given what I know about how photographic evidence with cryptids uh, is, it can go one way or the other. It can either be really um, really bad quality, or it can be really good quality compared to anything that exists. Okay, so in and th- so here's the thing: when I saw the original without like any lighting or anything, because it was taken during a darker period of the night or the day, and so it was hard to see in the original. But when you lighten it up, you guys are going to agree with me, I'm sure, that this is a wow moment too. Let me pull this up right quick because I'm going to tell you. I really didn't want to like spoil this and like pop it up by accident, and before I had time to like get you guys ready to see this, because this is, and again at first, because there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of plant life and so forth in this picture, but there's, if you look right in the middle of the picture and let your eyes travel up, you'll see what we're looking at here. And I was like, holy crap.
I was too that morning. And
I'm telling you, you
we have all witnessed a lot of. I always called them man wolves. You know, I didn't even know when people started mentioning Dogman, I was actually like, what is that? You know, and then I saw, illustrations and was listening to descriptions and stuff, what people were describing, and I was like, oh, the man wolves, okay. So, but I never really looked at them as Dogman, or identified them that way, but I didn't know how to identify them other than that they just look like upright, humanoid, upright wolves. But I was coming in from work, um, about 5:30 one morning, and the sun was starting to come up. Of course, that picture right there happens to be over there in the front of the same grove of trees, where the little blue orbs like to hang out at. So, but I didn't see him at first. I was in the car coming up the driveway, towards the front of the house, and I saw like a glint, and I saw something move. Um, Actually, that's kind of part of the front field, and the grass was grown up. There's another field on the other side of the fence post there, where it opens up out into a bigger field, and I just saw movement, and I saw a glint through there, and I thought, what is that? And I stopped in the driveway, of course, and I rolled my window down and stuck my stuck my phone camera out through there, and I thought, you know, maybe the camera will catch it and I can zoom it up and see what's going on. Honestly, I mean, my family has cattle. They have a lot of cattle and stuff out here, and that other field where he's like poking, he's starting to crawl out of the grass right there. Um, we don't turn. There's no cows that go in that front side field because it's leased out for crops. So my thinking was when I was coming in at 5:30 that morning, I thought, oh, wonderful. I get to go out here and go chase cows at 5:30 this morning before I actually go be able to go into the house and get a cup of coffee, and get them out of the lease field. Um, well, when I zoomed the picture up, that's what I thought. That's what was in the picture, you know. And he wasn't standing straight up. Um, he was just like the grass is pretty tall and the trees were kind of thick through there. So um, he was just kind of coming out of the grove right there.
Right. Tom, is there a way to zoom in to pictures on here? Because Tom is wanting me to zoom in on it. I'm not sure if I can do that on here. Maybe. I don't know. I've never tried to do that. Hold on a second. No, it's not there. Let's see. Will it let me? No, it's going to.
He was like actually right that that creature was actually on the other side of he was in the front of our side yard right there. That's actually part of our yard, connected to the house. So um, he was pretty close. So
Yeah, it looks ginormous to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just like how I perceive it, but it looks huge.
Of course, after realizing, I thought, oh my God, I thought that's one of them. And I thought, I'm a whole lot more closer for comfort than what I would like to be. Even sitting in my vehicle, sitting in the driveway, you know, from the short distance he was. So, but I just slowly pulled on up the drive. Right before I slowly pulled up on up into right up there beside the house. Um, I wish I could have got more pictures. I got real nervous, and I did get to shaking uncontrollably. And but I watched him come right on out of there, and he stood up, and I don't know if it was a male or female, honestly, but but I watched it walk down through the field, and on two legs. I mean,
Oh,
he didn't drop
jeez.
down, he didn't drop down on fours. He was on his two hind legs, and he walked straight down to the creek that's in the front of the property. And I just sat real still in the car. I just sat real still in the car and didn't move. And but of course, but at that point, I was shaking like a leaf because I thought, you know, he just acted like he's minding his own business, and I thought, good, he's going the other direction, you know. So
Right,
um,
right. Yeah, that, you know what? Because since I don't know how to actually zoom in on it and here, what I'll do, Tom, is I'll crop it down and zoom into it. And I'm going to have, because in the group, the Magical Journey podcast group, on the Book of Faces there, um, I have and I usually put stuff up in the photos, um, photo files. So what I'll do is I'll put one up with Beth name on it and credit her for the photos and drop these in there, and I'll crop that one so you can actually get a good view of it close up. Um, oh yeah, how long ago was that picture taken?
that was actually in 2016. That was in May of 2016.
Hmm.
So,
Wow. Now, keep in mind, like, there are organizations that have been all over these areas,
mhm.
well-known organizations, researching reports and so forth, of cryptids, especially throughout. I mean, for years now, they've been collecting reports in these areas through here. So that we're talking about. So it's not like this is undocumented. Uh, and there's plenty of documentation of activity throughout all of these areas. Actually, there's yet an. Are we surprised that there's a triangle here? Because and I just discovered that today doing some research was that they consider um, there's a huge swath of area that they refer to as a triangle for this area, and within that pattern, there's uh, quite a few reports that have come up over the years. So, Beth, let me ask you this: now, do you guys ever have any? Um, have you ever had any like uh, physical physical manifestations, like as far as with you guys, any strange like nausea, anything like that, any kind of like strange physical reactions to any of the manifestations, any of the anomalies?
Well, we have experienced a lot of spirit activity here also over the years. Um, you know, so and so have my children, and I know, you know, from I know at different times, depending on kind of what's passing through the house at times, um, you know, and circumstances we're experiencing. Yeah, sometimes I mean there has been um a lot of lightheadedness, you know. Honestly, I mean, and I personally, I mean, I've seen spirits since I was a very young child, you know, myself anyway. Um, you know, and still see them to this day. And I've been walking through parts of the house and even outside, and we'll see somebody coming up to the yard, and um, sometimes, you know, there has been times here that I've questioned whether it's actually a physical person coming up, coming around the house and through the yard, and it has put me, it has alarmed me to the point that I'm thinking there's no vehicles that have pulled up in the driveway. Um, where did they come from? I didn't see anybody coming up the front drive, you know, because I was out in the yard the whole time doing yard work, and I would get kind of was alarmed. I was like, where did they come from? You know, so, um, but you know, and it's happened more than once. You know, it's happened quite a bit over the years. Um, the closer, you know, like one instance in particular. There was a gentleman that was coming around the side of the house, coming around the front of the house. And like I said, it was one of those instances I really got alarmed about it because I'm like, who's this strange man walking up around the yard? Where'd he come from? You know, and because that day, I'm not afraid to be alone up here. I never have. I mean, I've been out here, you know, since the early 70s. Um, Even when we didn't live out here, you know, I sat out here with my grandparents and stuff, you know, quite a bit. And but it was always, you know, a comfort place, and and I always looked at it like home also, you know. And besides where we lived in town, you know, when I was growing up with my parents, but that like I said, that this one gentleman I one instance had come around the front of the house. I was at home. I was here by myself. Both my kids were in school. My mom was gone to work. Um, I was out here doing yard work, and this gentleman came around the side of the house, the front of the house, to the side yard, and I just like stood up and looked at him out through there, and I came straight out and asked him. I was like, "Who are you? Can I help you with something?" So, of course, I wasn't laughing. I was very upset at that point. Um, but he just he said hello. He said, "How are you doing, ma'am?" And he waved at me. The closer he got through there to the backyard, he had on a different time period of dress, you know, like the old trousers, the old style trousers, not like 1800s, but I mean like maybe early 1900s,
Mhm.
you know, uh, maybe early 1900s to maybe the 30s, around in there, around that time period. He had on a white shirt. He had a white collar on it. Had on trousers, and I just I caught his haircut. He walked right past me and
Wow.
went right out the bag and kept on going. Um,
Jeez.
and kept on going, and I'm sitting there with my mouth open. We had other dogs here at the time, pets. Um, the dogs saw him, you know. Um, one of the dogs was following him out through the backyard as he walked past me, and I thought, oh my goodness. But still, he was so materialized, and I was just tripping on the whole thing. But then he disappeared. Okay, he got outside the backyard in a little lot that we've got behind the backyard that we've got fenced in, and he was just gone,
Mm.
disappeared, gone. So, not all of them are that materialized. He was, you know, I never did know anything about the 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 gentleman's spirit. Didn't know his name. Didn't know where he came from. I have no idea. I, I could tell you the color of his clothing that day. So, um,
Wow.
and kind of what he looked like. But other than that, you know, um, my children have experienced, quite a bit of spirit activity themselves, here growing up too. So has my mom. My mom has, you know. So
Wow.
there's been there has been a lot of nights over the years, where I've been at work. Um, the kids have been asleep. They're both grown now, but as far as they're adults, but my mom has called me at work, with me working at night, and she knows she knew the kids were both downstairs asleep. You know, I don't
Wow.
mean to laugh. She laughs about it too, and we've learned to just develop a crazy sense of humor over, a lot of it over the years. Um, both the boys were downstairs asleep. She was downstairs asleep, and for a long time we've got it's a 2-story house, so there's a full upstairs up here, but uh, nobody had their bedrooms or anything like that up here at the time. Everybody slept downstairs, and my mom has called me at work, in the middle of the shift, and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm hearing footsteps across the floor upstairs, you
Mm.
know," and she's a little freaked out by it. And I'm like, "Well, both the boys are downstairs. Nobody's been upstairs." And she's like, "No, nobody's gotten up. Nobody's
Wow.
gotten up, and she'll kind of vent about it a little bit and get up and go in the kitchen and might get her a cup of coffee, and that's what we're talking about at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, and we're kind of joking around and carrying on that, well, the roommates are restless in the house, okay?
Which
So,
the roommates.
but
You crack me up when you say the roommates, but that's pretty much what it's like. Um, so as we're rounding out the night, I want to ask you, because I always ask people this, if there is something you would like to leave us with tonight as far as closing thoughts, what would that be?
As far as and I've always been very sensitive and intuitive to begin with. It's all I think no matter what you can see or what abilities you have to begin with, you're a forever student. You know, you're a forever student. Um, there's always something new, always something to learn. Um, and you you will never have all the answers.
Mm-mm.
That is a wrong way to think. I think because as soon as you think that, oh, I've seen so much and experienced so much, there is always something that's gonna answer that thought and come out and surprise you. It's always gonna come out and surprise you, you know, and you're gonna have a whole new adventure all over again,
Yes,
So,
definitely.
but
So,
I just think too that is our area is very active. The property we live on is very, very active. And it always has been. I mean, not just myself, me being as sensitive as I am and as intuitive as I know I am. Basically, um, my grandparents, my mom, my uncles, um, my cousins, everybody, it's been generational here, even for all of my family, and they they might not say anything. I think they were afraid to for a long time. Some of them, everybody receives things different, and when you have a strange spirit man roaming through your house, and um, he's not normally part of the family, um, and the young children wind up seeing them in the house or something. Of course, it does scare them a lot of times. There is a lot of trauma involved with that, and
yes,
at times, you know, and I think you know I've always tried to teach my sons myself, for them not to be afraid of it, you know, not to be afraid. Um, we're there's a lot of unexplainable things in this world, So,
yes, there are
and,
a lot.
so
Pam has one more question before we end the night too, and I'm kind of curious about this because I never thought about asking you. Oddly enough, um, have you had anybody investigate to see if there are ley lines in the area?
not we've never had anybody investigate to see if there's any ley lines like directly here on this property, here on this property itself. So
You know what? I bet if you tried, you could probably check that out with dowsing rods. I
mhm,
would think there's a dowsing rods cover a wonderful amount of sins. I
that would
love,
that would be something to do right there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely. All right. Um, hang back for a moment. I'm going to let go on and close out the show, and I will talk with you in just a moment. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right, guys. I told you, I told you this was going to be a night that you're going to remember this interview. And I got to tell you, those photos, wow. Like, the more she showed me, the more I was just like, I was literally just shaking from excitement. I was like, give me, give me, give me. You know what I mean? It's like, so uh, the bottom line is that you this is one of those rare stories that was brought with receipts. And in investigating and in studying the photographic evidence at this point, um, I have to say that it is legitimate, unknown paranormal activity. It's not, I can't explain it away with, with the usual lens flare. You can't explain it away with uh, any type of natural phenomena. Everything points to something that you just can't there's no explanation for it. No mundane explanation. And as a researcher, excuse me, as a researcher and as an investigator, I've been trained to always look for the mundane before the magical when it comes to any evidence you come across. You know, is that track a bear track? Is that, is that noise a pipe in the house? What's going on here? And when you rule out everything and you finally exhaust the answers, the only answer is, what it is instead of what's not. So, my evaluation of the interviews, of the discussions we've had, the photographic evidence, is that this case is definitely a legitimate, hardcore. The evidence is so astonishing to me, and probably one of the I can well, there's no probably to it. I can leave you with this tonight. This is one of a very small amount of cases that I can truly say that I conclusively believe, without having physically gone there. Uh, I believe that this is a legitimate paranormal experience. So, and you guys have followed me for a bit, so I don't say that loosely. Um, so let that sink in, and may your journey always be magical.